It's Color Wheel Wednesday, and this week we are tilting the color wheel. This one's for Felicity, who left a comment wondering if anyone has ever created a double cone color model. Importantly, she says, the shape would need to be a bit skew whiff to account for the differing value of each of the pure hues. The purest yellow needs to be closer to white, and the purest purple needs to be closer to the black end. Color theory history is littered with cones, but the first person to suggest a model like the one you're describing, Felicity, was August Kirschmann, a German-born scientist who ran the psychology laboratory at the University of Toronto for a while back in the 1890s. In papers published in 1895 and 96, he described a color perception model with a tilted hue circle. Here's his original diagram. His original paper was entitled Color Saturation and its Quantitative Relations to Hue and Lightness. The gist here is that once you take saturation seriously as its own perceptual dimension, all the symmetrical cone, cylinder, globe models that came before, they don't really make sense because not all hues are created equal. Yellow, when fully saturated, is way lighter, and blue or violet, when fully saturated, are way darker. And I actually created this build-it-yourself Kirschmann solid a few years ago. It's a bit tricky to put together, but if you are interested in your own Kirschmann model, you can download the template by following the link in the description. A similar slanted model was proposed by another German psychologist, Willy 𝘚𝘓𝘈𝘕𝘛, a few decades and 2 world wars later in 1946. Interestingly, he slanted the grayscale rather than the hue circle, but it amounts to the same thing. But so far that's all abstract theoretical psychology. What about art and design? Has the tilted double cone been a part of color theory? Yes, for over a century, actually. Art professor Arthur Pope articulated the idea in his 1922 book, Tone Relations in Painting. It's available on archive.org and absolutely worth a look. Pope visualized the idea a number of different ways. Every hue reaches its full chroma at a different lightness level, and in his model there's a symmetry to it. Vivid yellow is the lightest, but then going down both slopes, both directions from yellow, vivid green and vivid orange are about the same lightness, and then vivid blue and vivid red are about the same lightness, and then down to purple. In his side view, you can see he's sort of spiraling down around the surface of a cylinder in equal steps. So actually the shape of the color circle becomes two half helices joined at their highest and lowest points at yellow and violet. It's a little more complex than just, tilting the wheel, but to me the cool thing here is that color theorists have arrived at this same basic idea through very different thought processes. We should contrast all these ideas, by the way, against a regular double cone. In episode 1, we talked about Oswald's color wheel, but here we should pause and talk about Oswald's solid, first explained around 1916. Oswald's system doesn't use lightness as its vertical dimension. Rather, he defines variations in a single plane of constant hue in terms of their blackness and whiteness. And that allows him to put his full colors, or his most vibrant colors, Wohlfarben, at an equal height around the model, at the equator, in the position that he designates as having both zero blackness and zero whiteness, right? Full color, makes sense. Forgive me, I've been meaning to color in this model for over 4 years now, and this is as far as I got. Now here's where Oswald becomes relevant to our current discussion. 2 of the color scientists who worked for Oswald realized the limitations of his perfectly symmetrical double cone system. First, we have Hans Podestà. He was the ophthalmologist whom Oswald tapped to write part of his color theory series, the 4th book in a series of 5 planned books. the one on the physiological basis of color vision. And that volume was published in 1922. Then it seems Podestà wasn't done thinking about color and how to model it. 8 years later, he published his own ideas in Contributions to the Systematics of Color Sensations. You can see in this diagram Podestà's ideal model of the color solid, as he called it. Interestingly, yellow and blue are opposite each other as the top and bottom of this tilted wheel, whereas all the previous systems we looked at put yellow and violet opposite each other. This is because in Oswald's system, ultramarine blue is the visual opposite or complement of yellow. Our next scientist worked directly for Oswald for over a decade until Oswald's death in 1932. His name was Manfred Adam, and he was Oswald's 𝘚𝘓𝘈𝘕𝘛, or color organ keeper, which meant he was responsible for the maintenance of the cabinets and apparatuses that Oswald used to demonstrate his system. Adam therefore knew that system inside and out, and he spent decades trying to reconcile Oswald's system with the international CIE standard, with the Munsell system and other systems, from behind the Iron Curtain. His result actually became East Germany's official color standard, TGL 21579, the Cold War twin of West Germany's better-known DIN 6164 color standard, which we looked at in a previous video. Adam called his system the technical aesthetic basic system, technical enough for industry, intuitive enough for artists, and importantly, the system had built-in ways to translate between the languages of science and art. A 2016 reconstruction of his physical model sits in the Dresden University of Technology's special collections. And although it's hard to tell from the angle of this photo, the hue rings in this model are slanted and come to a point at white. So I created this digital reconstruction to try to visualize it better. You might notice, though, that this model doesn't show a slanted double cone. It's essentially a slanted circus tent. But the model isn't meant to represent the color solid per se. It's actually just part of the translation process from the technical language of CIE color measurement to the aesthetic model of color in his system. You can see the other part of that thinking actually in these two diagrams. This is an example of a single slice of the Oswald double cone like this, but look how Adam has skewed this grid of rhombuses. This is the grid for lemon yellow, and this is the skewed grid for its complement, ultramarine or blue-violet. And so while the official report doesn't include a neat drawing of the tilted double cone model it implies, you can put all the pieces together and see that's what his model was shaped like. It's probably the most complex and accomplished route to arrive at this double cone we've been talking about that's been kicking around in color science since the 1890s. I want to actually pause a moment to acknowledge the invaluable resource that I had for this video, which is the book Color Ordered, a survey of color order systems from antiquity to the present by Ralph Kuhne and Andreas Schwarz. Schwarz himself, in fact, produced the last tilted cone model we're going to look at today, his didactic build-it-yourself color model, published in 2004. On his website, Schwarz actually describes how a number of conversations at an art teachers conference in Germany in 2003 led him to propose this as a model for teaching color, as a classroom model. It's fascinating to me that Schwarz, a well-versed researcher in color pedagogy and color models, going back to antiquity, is convinced that the double cone is still the clearest way to explain color in a classroom. So there you have it. The tilted color wheel was reinvented again and again over the last 100-odd years, and it's still kind of in use. Thanks for the question, Felicity. And if there's a color wheel you want to see in the next episode, drop it in the comments. All right, thanks.